have issues of the balance of payments and all that. Now, I represent National Planning Authority. National Planning Authority is the body that emanates out of the constitutional provision of Article 125 of the Constitution that brought up the NPA Act of 2002. Its main role is to conduct comprehensive integrated development plans that detailed in terms of the long-term, medium-term, and also guiding on short-term plans. So the national plan, that is the main role of the National Planning Authority. So we do support development planning, or rather we do development plans, of course, in consultation with Ugandans, in consultation with so many stakeholders, all Ugandans. In addition to this, or rather, maybe if we could go briefly into that. So the National Planning Authority is the one that formulated, on behalf of Ugandans, of course, the Vision 2040 that is trying to describe where we want Uganda to be by 2040. This Vision 2040, to attain that vision, we anticipated the formulation of around 6 development plans that are 5-year. We are now at the stage of implementing the third National Development Plan, having already implemented NDP, the National Development Plan 1 and the second National Development Plan. So these plans also have attendant plans. We expect the implementers, that is the ministries, departments, and agencies, the MDAs, to formulate plans that speak to the National Development Plan, that speak to the national vision. We also expect the local governments and the urban authorities and the local governments to formulate plans that are in this line. So all effort should be put towards the implementation of those plans. That is why even the development partners also try to align whatever they are doing to the development plans. The second thing that we do at the National Planning Authority is that we conduct evaluations of policies, of government initiatives, programs, and interventions to try to see the impact that we have had as a country. For example, we evaluated the universal primary education policy some years ago, and we did share our findings with the general public, and the findings also are also being implemented under the NDP3. So that is a big project. We realized that we had the program for some 20 years and no comprehensive evaluation of that policy had been conducted. So we do those evaluations. Currently, we are conducting the evaluation of the decentralization policy of the country, and so many other evaluations that are pertinent to the development of our country. We conduct them. The other key role that we play is advising the president, advising the cabinet on key issues in the economy. For instance, we are the National Planning Authority is the secretariat of the Presidential Economic Council, which Presidential Economic Council is chaired by HE the President, and it discusses pertinent issues. We have presented a number of papers in that conference. We have written a number of advisory notes, which help in decision making. We've also been bestowed with the role of conducting feasibility studies and investment appraisals for key for major or for strategic in strategic areas, you will realize that certain areas are so big to the private sector to invest in. So as a government, we try to come in and conduct thorough feasibility studies to guide the private sector and other stakeholders to invest in those areas. Our most recent, or rather one of the fundamental studies that we've conducted, there is this debate of whether it is important for government to invest in commercial banking or to invest in the financial sector. So we have come up with an analysis that tries to show the merits and demerits and what feasible options should government undertake, whether to have a big commercial bank, the UCB style that we used to have, or we invest in the present private, rather public banks that are available, or acquisition of a private bank where necessary. So that is some kind of analysis. We've also had a study on the analysis of the sugar cane industry of Busoga region. Right now, we are undertaking a feasibility analysis on the packaging industry, having known that packaging and branding is very key, as we will maybe see when we discuss regional development or regional trade issues. So we've also been undertaking feasibility studies and investment appraisals for industrial parks and all that. And the other roles that we also conduct have been best trained to us by maybe the changes in the Public Finance Management Act. We play some role in budgeting. There is a certificate that we issue that accompanies the budget of every year, the certificate of compliance of the previous year's budget to this budget. Basically, we are all in these spaces. These are just some of the few issues that we do, but have an impact on our economy.
Interesting. Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Moses Mauku.
A very good morning to all Ugandans and the listeners of the UBC radio, and in particular Ground Zero program. Mauku Richard Moses is my name. I am the General Secretary of Uganda Hotels, Food, Tourism, Supermarkets and Allied Workers Union. But the short name, the acronym is HTS Union. My function is basically to represent the interests of the workers. But I also sit on the board of the National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTU, as the private sector union representative. Our basic and principal duty is to represent the interests of the workers of this nation, but through the tripartite arrangement where we reach decisions in the tripartite partnership arrangement, that is government, employers and the workers. I am privileged to be here, and I thank the organizers for this program to, among other people, invite me to share my little knowledge about what I've seen the few years I've been around. What I could say about the topic we are here to discuss is to appreciate that every economy strives to grow and develop. But the intent is the growth should benefit the nationals. Because what constitutes an economy is its people. And therefore the programs there too should have the intent of benefiting the common person. When we compare ourselves, we are talking about 60 years of independence. What people at that time in 1962 strived for mainly was political independence. But when you have political independence, it must only be sustainable when you are also economically independent. And Uganda has moved a lot of strides to secure that status of political independence. Some of the attributes to what we see today is basically political stability or instability. From the time we had independence to 1986, when the current regime took over power, we had about 7 presidents in a very short spell of time. And that political instability could not allow steady economic development. But we see a lot of improvements economically during the NRM regime. A lot of developments have occurred. A lot of developments are seen on the surface. And we can also see people changing. Even structurally, we are seeing a lot of things in the name of development of the economy. And when you compare figures, I was trying to scan through the information, and I see that in the 70s, the budget of Uganda was about $1.3 billion in the 70s. As today we are talking about 35 billion US dollars. So that stride is quite remarkable. Though the numbers of the population is also growing very steadily. I remember I was a younger boy in 1980, and the census that time I think put us at about 10 million people. About 10 million people in 1980. Today we are talking about around 45 million people. So much as the economy is growing, the population is equally growing. So if you compare the figures, you may find in the real terms of economic development to the human beings, the population, the stride might not look very big, because it was $1.3 billion divided among 10 million people. It's now $35 billion divided among 45 million people. So I didn't juggle the figures, but you find that we may not have, in the real terms of the individual livelihood, we may not have changed too much. But as in far as figures are concerned, the stride is quite big. And the structures, all of us can see what we used to see in Kampala in the 80s, and as compared to what we have today, and in all the other cities and even town councils, and there are quite many and big developments that we can see that have been registered, especially during the regime that is currently in power. I also want to appreciate one thing, that when the SAPs were introduced by the World Bank in 1987, they introduced policies to drive the country, the economy, to strive to see that they can manage the economy in a manner that can make us independent. And we have the industrialization. We have privatization that followed industrialization as a policy. But certain times you find we had ginger, because for me I was born in Ginger. As a younger boy, we used to know that Ginger was the biggest industrial town in East and Central Africa. We also used to be told that actually one time the president visited when I was a student. He used to visit Ginger very many times, almost every 2-3 months. And it was in his address at Ginger SS, he was telling Ugandans that it has 3 key aspects. Ginger SS was the biggest school in East and Central Africa. And we used to have 265 teachers that time. Narambai Primary School was the biggest in East and Central Africa, and then being the biggest industrial town. So today, when you look at what was Ginger that time, it can't even make 10% of what we have today in Namamve There are so many organizations that have been registered here. One time, I think 2018, during Labor Day, the president still said that the Ministry of Justice had registered about 530 operational companies in the private sector, 530,000. And Uganda is very happy with such developments. The other question that comes in my mind as a representative of the workers is, does the industrialization match with the labor administration? While industries are growing on one side steadily, we even have an authority here, Uganda Investment Authority. In the private sector, we have organizations like the Uganda Manufacturers Association, a huge establishment there by the employers. You also have a Federation of Uganda Employers. And industries are growing. But the ministry responsible for the people doing the jobs has remained a subsection, has remained a department and a different ministry. While we are talking about East African community doing things they like, all the other countries have ministries responsible for labor, independent. In Uganda, we have a ministry for gender, labor, and social development. Labor as a function, it is just a directorate with very few people. And we still have laws here. The Occupational Safety and Health Act provides that government should inspect workplaces at least once annually. But the number of inspectors this government have as OSH inspectors is far less than even 50. And when you ask yourself, how can 50 labor inspectors annually inspect 530,000 companies? It is just unworkable. So people are operating without following the right procedures. And there is no person superintending. That's why you will hear of industrial accidents everywhere. People do these, construct these houses, and they even start operating with a population of about 500 people. And they don't have certain specific certification from the qualified inspectors. But the companies are operating. We have companies here where we have been registering death of employees. And you wonder, did these companies get certificates from the ministry responsible for labor to operate? Did they get proper certification from the engineers? Why should workers die in one organization each year and the company is not even closed? And ministers also go there. So those are some of the challenges that we meet in some of the policies. Some policies are given more time, are given more priority than the other equally important sectors. So we have industrialization growing very steadily. Number of employees growing. But the ministry responsible for those factors has remained the department and another ministry. And when you talk about, they don't even want to give an answer. It is useless. We are operating in a country where we do not have a minimum wage pronounced by government. A minimum wage. And people or responsible people will tell you will discourage investors. Who is this serious investor who cannot pay minimum wage? If somebody is a serious investor coming to invest in a different country, but you cannot afford a minimum wage, then, and that is how we even see investors going through the investment authority of our country and coming here to do petty jobs. They are busy even lifting bales here in Chikuvu, and they are registered as investors. Some of them are even doing
hawking.
Yeah, hawking. But when you ask, they would say those are investors. Don't disturb people. They bring us business.
Okay.
We would have loved to have investors who come here to do things we cannot manage as Ugandans.
Mm.
But We appreciate that government is doing a lot,
Okay.
though some of the efforts are failed by some of the actors. And we would only continue urging government to listen to the other actors, so we do the things in the best interest of a common person, the common Ugandan.
Thank
Because
you, Mauku.
economic development is intended for me and every other Ugandan, not only the structures that the government has put there, or for only those that work with government, but all of us.
That's interesting, and I also believe the same, that the economy or the economic development should cater for all the people of Uganda.
Sure.
Uganda at 60 strides taken by Uganda to attain economic independence. In the studios of UBC, I have Dr. Patrick Olowo, is the manager macroeconomic planning from National Planning Authority. Mauku Moses is General Secretary and CEO, hotels, supermarkets, and food union. Ampere Aman Ortega is my name. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are broadcasting live on 98 FM. That is UBC Red. We're also live and clear on Western Nile Radio, Radio Butebo, and Radio Magic 100 FM. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You put UBC Ground Zero, you'll be part of this conversation. Later on, you will join the conversation on 776 511 426. The number to call is 776 511 426, and you'll be part of this conversation. Patrick, as you said that you have the mandate to guide, but also to evaluate the government projects and policies to produce a comprehensive economic development plans for the country. How do you realize this? And ever since you were established in 2002, in accordance with Article 125 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, what are the things that you think you have brought into existence ever since then? That you think if we never had National Planning Authority, perhaps Uganda would be in a mess? Dr. Patrick?
Thank you, Emon, once again. Maybe briefly to talk about some stuff that my colleague Mauku, Mr. Mauku, talked about, of the lack of minimum wage, given the kind of economic, given the kind of the economic regime that we are having. You know, Uganda is operating sort of a free market economy. Much as this doesn't mean that the government is not supposed to intervene, but where you have an excess supply of some, where you have an excess supply of labor, most especially at the level of the unskilled labor or semi-skilled labor, it becomes counterintuitive to have a minimum wage, because should you pronounce yourself on this minimum wage and then you cannot enforce it, or because there are some people who might be willing to offer their labor at a lower wage, so that minimum wage might not necessarily hold in that particular case. So the issues of enforcement becomes difficult. As he has also said that certainly, surely in Uganda we faced a problem of enforcement of a number of regulations and standards, even when we know that these regulations are in existence. So we've had this problem, and we ought to do better as government in terms of trying to enforce all the regulations that are that we have made ourselves to follow. Just before I go into the question which you have asked, I would also wish to comment about the economy, about the trends that we have passed through over the years, knowing that we were very stable in the 60s when we got our independence, the economy that we bequeathed from the colonialists was basically the way they had structured the economy. It was in terms of produce these products, these primary products, for exportation to the other countries. So of course the population was a little bit small. Somehow the economy was working for all those that were involved in production. So the turbulences that we got thereafter up to the 80s, and then the coming of the National Resistance Movement government, when it started off with an economic recovery program. You've had the turbulence of over 20 years. Now how do you recover the lost years? So the period between 86 to around 96 was more of economic recovery, and indeed a lot of we started looking at positive growth. When I've had an opportunity of looking at rather listening to the speech, one of your people here, Mr. Owana, shares these things on YouTube, looking at the budget that the late Professor Ponsiano Mulema read, the first budget for this country. You could tell that most of the things were really in a mess, whereby when you compare that budget speech with the budget speeches that we've had of late, you realize that we have taken, that we have achieved a lot, that there is something even that we can report on. So from the period 1996 to roughly around 2009-10, this is the Poverty Eradication Action Plan. When it is poverty reduction, poverty strategy papers that countries were developing, fused with the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs of that time. So the social sectors were on top of the game. So that is why we registered higher growth, those numbers that you read. There's a time we even registered growth of 9%. Within that period, there was a lot of spending on those sectors that really have an impact on the vulnerable people, on the Mtuawansi kind of people. So that is the period when you even saw the coming on board of universal primary education and all that. So that was we saw poverty reducing from around because the figure we have in 1992, poverty was at around 56%. So by around 2009, we had seen poverty falling to the region of 20 plus something around there. So when we move away from that kind of planning of just centering on poverty eradication, and we get into development planning, into infrastructure building, into accumulating the stock of productive infrastructure. So we see some kind of structural changes within our economy. So this is when we see an increase in the development of the services sector. The services sector in the 60s was not there. Now our GDP is 42% services. In there you have trade and repairs, we have financial services and all that. So that is the biggest chunk of our economy. We have also seen the increase or the importance of industry in our GDP or in our growth. And the biggest chunk of this industry is actually manufacturing, whereby it is over 50% of here is manufacturing, and the other bit is on construction, which is both construction. Maybe I'll talk about it. Maybe it might not be very productive investment, You've heard of arguments of why does a Ugandan construct a house just to live in for 1 billion. That is maybe not productive infrastructure, rather productive investment or productive capital. What if I had gotten this 1 billion and I put it in an agro processing plant? I would create more jobs for the people, and even the sustainability of that kind of enterprise would be much. So, but the point here we are making is industry in terms of manufacturing value added is very critical for transforming this country. No country has transformed without that improved industry. Now the other last bit is our agriculture, of course, which has shrunk in terms of contribution to GDP, and it should even shrink further. Although that doesn't mean that it should that shrinking is a negative thing. So we want it to be productive. It should be highly productive. But now you see the biggest chunk, the biggest majority of Ugandans are in the sector, yet it is contributing less to GDP. So, meaning that there are production-related issues that we should be addressing, or that we've tried to address over the years, and maybe they have not worked, and we shall still continue prescribing medicine for that problem. Now, you've asked a question that what has a National Planning Authority done in terms of this, or that what would we miss if we did not have National Planning Authority? There is one thing that we have achieved, the most fundamental thing, you know,
in 12 years.
Over the years. Entrenching planning in this country is a key achievement of the authority. Before we had NPA, doesn't mean that there was no planning. It could have been a hazard here and there. You witness a scenario in which some ministries, departments, and agencies would have budgets without without a plan. You'd have a local government or an urban authority conducting business without a plan. Ideally, or best practices require that whether it is a national budget, that national budget has to be driven by our development plans. So whether it is an institutional budget, whether it is a departmental budget, it must be driven by what you have planned to do, not based on impulses. Now that we have attained this and this, so now we need to do this and this. So that is, to me, or to us, that is critical. Now people are involved in this, in the planning process, such that the interests of the interests of several stakeholders are implemented through those annual budgets. We've also we have like I told you that we conduct studies, we evaluate here and there. We conducted a study on the Uganda Airlines. We had a lot of talk in this country that we don't need an airline, we don't need that business. So we managed to produce a feasibility study. We managed to produce a business plan for it on what needs to be done in order for us to revive that. So through such kind of studies, we are able to convince the political leadership. We are able to we are able to influence the policy makers at Parliament, at the executive, to be able to undertake those decisions. We've also conducted several other studies which have come to be implemented. Remember, during COVID, we came up with a COVID prediction model. on what needs to be done in order for the country to return to normal, how to predict what is going to happen, and all that. So through such analysis, we are able to do all those things. But most importantly and finally is that the development plans that we conduct, because they are based on several studies, we integrate these studies into these plans, such that you come up with several projects or development interventions that are critical in driving the development of this country. And one of the issues there that has been picked has been the parish development model, which we put forward to address the 39% of Ugandans that are based in subsistence production. So what government is trying to undertake has actually was picked from the national development plans. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you. Now we have heard that the contributions of the National Planning Authority, we have heard enough in this industry, and you are a stakeholder in the business. There are so many government programs and projects that have come and failed. Maybe that is for another hour, in the few minutes to come. Every Ugandan is concerned about the currency of Ugandan shillings, which is losing the value day by day compared to others in the region. Do you think we need to come up with other strong reforms on how best we can make our currency a bit stronger compared to others in the region? What is your take on the Ugandan currency, especially the shillings?
That Uganda has tried. 3 weeks ago, I was in Harare for some conference. And sometimes when you stay in one place, you may not appreciate that you are a little bit better off than other people. It is also advisable that when we are appreciating God, it's important to look at the people behind you in terms of what you have. Then you'll best appreciate God. We want to appreciate Uganda as a government that it has done a tremendous job. But we shall not at any one time forget to remind the Uganda government to do better. In Harare, they use the US dollars because their money disturbs them. It is like too much. So they just use the dollar, the US dollars, to purchase things. Even the common person, they use dollars these days. But you can also use the local currency if you have it. But common rate is the dollars that are used in Zimbabwe. It is because of such similar situations of inflation that is skyrocketing all the time. One thing that is a little bit difficult to explain, I'm not a government employee, is a scenario where the Governor Bank of Uganda died. And we don't have one up to tomorrow. Somebody would keep asking, what is happening? You know, we had some case here. I think it was Attorney General or DPP. I don't remember the case, but there was a matter which featured, and somebody was either given a contract and signed by somebody acting, and it was annulled in court because the law prescribed that it is so and so who should do this. So in the situation today where we do not have a Governor Bank of Uganda, at one time we may be surprised by somebody springing up in court and saying, challenging certain very critical issues or decisions that have been taken. So we want to remind the government, remind the executive that there is some problem there. maybe people have started speaking in public. Is it because we don't have a governor that the prices of commodities are skyrocketing? While we are aware that it is affecting every country, we don't comprehend issues at the same level as Ugandans. There are those that can secure or get such information. There are those that don't know. So when they hear a few things, they become topical to them. Why don't we have a governor, a fully appointed as governor, for all the time, from the time the other day? One is, it is a reality that the issue of the skyrocketing prices of fuel is the main problem globally that is causing the prices of all commodities to increase. The other issue would be, what has your government done? When we hear that in Rwanda, for example, the government has either reduced on the taxation, the government has, in Kenya recently, we had a pronouncement by the president, His Excellency Uhuru, former, saying that posho, the price for posho, should not go beyond this. And they do some kind of remedial action to salvage the person whose income has not increased, but is equally Ugandan. He has been earning 100,000 shillings as salary. And we have those Ugandans, many who earn 100,000 shillings for 30 days. I know of many. So this person's salary has not increased. He has a child or two with a wife or husband, and the child is school going. They have to feed, they have to go to the hospital, but his income is 100. Even if it were 200,000, in the situation where we don't have a minimum wage, so anybody can pay anything as long as the other person is willing. You know, we sit in interviews. When you're interviewing people and you ask, how much can we give you as a minimum? He will say, give me anything as long as I can eat. Give me anything. He can only complain after he's been in employment for some time. That is when he realizes that this salary is very low. But at the time of taking the decision to take up a job, he will accept anything. Or he just says, you decide for me as long as I'm working. People are there, but are we as authorities going to allow this to happen? Because Uganda is a liberal economy, Uganda is a private-led sector economy, and we don't streamline, we don't give proper regulations. I have never believed in somebody insisting that minimum wage discourages investment. Never. It only discourages quacker investors. And I don't know whether there is any country which would love to have a person to come to a country to make pancake as an investor. So any serious investor, and they actually, there is a study from India where an investor was saying, I cannot invest in a country that has no minimum wage, because I will go and invest and the workers that come there just come to steal. And even here, these things happen. All workers become target employees because he wants to get money to himself or herself. And what you have offered is too little. But it's better, he says it's better than sitting home. I want to give an explanation. In Uganda, we have NSSF as a law. NSSF is Social Security Fund. That covers for the person contributing and even those that are not in employment. The proceeds, the monies that we put into NSSF, are used by the economy, the country, the investors. Even Kampala Serena here is using our money. DFCU Bank is using our money. NSSF, such big investors, they are using NSSF money. So this money helps everybody else. But You bring your investor and he tells you, I am going to employ 500 people. But you don't follow to understand, out of the 500 jobs this person has promised, how many of these 500 people contribute to their NSSF, to their social security in the future. You may find they are less than 50. The rest of 450 are casual. They do not make meaning even to the economy because they don't even subscribe to pay as you earn. Because pay as you earn has a threshold of 235,000. If you earn less than that, then you don't pay. So most of the people employed in these industries we see actually don't contribute to pay as you earn. So those are precarious and useless jobs, even to the people owning the jobs. You don't contribute to NSSF because they will say this one is a casual for even 10 years. You are a casual.
Talking of Ugandan currency, you've said that Zimbabwe has introduced the dollar. Looking at the shillings that we have, do we also need the dollar, or it's better we be patient with our shilling?
We can be patient. It is very bad to fail to have your own currency. It would be an abuse. But I am not sure that we shall sustain this. One time I went to Switzerland. I was in Switzerland, and in my wallet there was a 50,000 note. So some colleagues from Brazil, they said, hey, all this is money in one
currency, in one note.
50,000. Everybody was frightened. I said, it is what we use. While other people, the biggest note is 100, ours is 50. We are just fearing, maybe because of shame, we would have even secured one for 1 million. Otherwise, we need to do everything humanly possible to ensure that we fight this notion of inflation. We might be ending up into the situation where we say, maybe let us use a dollar. Even in Addis Ababa here, the currency there is a dollar. Mostly used is dollars, not their own. And those, I don't know whether they are failed economies. I don't know why. Even Addis Ababa, I was asking the people there, but they commonly use dollars.
Okay.
So it is necessary that the government, the planners, my brother over here, doctor, plan better to ensure that our money regains.
Okay.
Because if you are going to pay 4,000 shillings for a dollar, we are now paying over 5,000, I think, for a pound currently. It is getting too much. So we need to do whatever it takes to ensure that our currency gains back into the economy.
Okay, thank you, Mauku. Dr. Patrick, do you think, as Mauku is suggesting, that we need to restore the value of shillings? Do we need the currency reforms to re-establish the physical and monetary discipline to enable Ugandans to achieve and maintain the macroeconomic stability?
Thank you, moderator. There are things that we need to know from basics. A weak currency is not necessarily a bad thing for the country, most especially in terms of stimulating exports. But the underlying assumption there is that you should be able to produce the goods and services which will attract the people to come and buy these goods. If your currency is not very powerful, the good thing is that your commodities become cheaper to the outside world, meaning that you can bring in more dollars that the economy requires. Yes, the exchange rate of late, when you see these numbers, this is not a gradual thing. I would be very much disturbed if there has been a gradual depreciation in this exchange rate. But you've seen that this has been like a spike. It has coincided with the problems that we are having in the international economy, we have seen dollars leaving frontier markets of Uganda, going back the other to the global financial markets, simply because we've had some challenges within our economies. And you are right to say that the international price, these national changes in the oil prices have had an impact on our economy. And one thing that government is trying to do to mitigate this is government is trying to see that it can engage, it can import directly the oil without middlemen, because middlemen play a role in terms of oil pricing. There is a study by the Economic Policy Research Center that has tried to show what enters into the pump prices. And 40% of the pump price that we pay in Kampala, Jinja, and Mbale is 40% explained by international prices. So whenever there is an increase in the international prices of oil, so we know that the pass-through effect into the national economy is at 40%. But because we have some kind of middlemen in there, so the other attendant costs in terms of transportation, they are going to constitute around 20%. I'm forgetting my numbers, and the taxation bit is also around at 20%. So until we remove some of those middlemen, and we negotiate with maybe the Saudi government directly, we will be able to ease some pressure in terms of that pricing of oil. Then we should be very careful about requiring subsidies. You are very right. You quoted Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta playing out his politics of trying to say that, well, bei ya unga shouldn't go above this. That's but already, but this has already stopped actually after the election. So sustaining a subsidy is something that is very, very difficult, because it basically means that government has to top up, has to make a payment to those people who are maybe importing those products that they are selling. So should we give a subsidy, say, to Shell and Total? That is not using my brother Ramadan Govi's talk. That's not economics that works. Otherwise, you're going to be feeding. You're going to be making those rich guys already richer. If you say that, okay, I'm going to buy fuel from Shell and Total because they constitute around 30% of the market.
Interesting.
So it is the politics of or the economics of subsidies might not be the economics that works for our economies. Otherwise, you're going to see a spike in the fiscal deficit. You're going to see government spending more, and at the same time, it is us people. Hold on, it is us in the private sector who are going to say that debt is going to kill.
An alternative that works. But here is a situation where strategies, where the strategy of subsidy may not work.
Yes, please.
What have we advised in the alternative?
What do we have
People in the public have said, could we constrain, not constraining as such, could we reduce on the tax that we levy on a liter?
We have
if that could be, or any other alternative that works for the common person. You know, here these days, you know, the budget is so economical that, I mean, not economical, but there is a lot of economics in the budget presentation that most Ugandans who have not sat in an economics class cannot understand even 10% of what they say. So people have resorted to one thing: amafuta bagongeza. Awabama zo ku understanding budget ya Uganda. amafuta bagongeza. That is the budget of Uganda. It is about fuel. So even the government should take very keen interest in the fuel prices and in the taxation on fuel, because it predetermines 90% of what the person locally will spend.
All right.
Patrick,
you have a second to conclude on that.
Yes, that is true. What Mr. Mook is saying. However, we did some analysis with the Ministry of Finance, and it indicated that we are going even to fall in a much deeper ditch. Should you remove or should you reduce the excise on fuel in these years? Remember,
the ditch is deeper than this one.
The ditch is, yes. Things could be even much worse. Should we take that route? First and foremost,
compared to other countries in the region, Uganda seems to be high, as others are less than $1 per liter, but they are not yet in that ditch that you are talking about.
Also ask, when you cross to Rwanda, the fuel prices there, fuel that goes.
There is no country
Uganda
that has fuel in the region that is below the $1. I've been to Rwanda
before, leave around this crisis. But before, fuel in Rwanda was cheaper, and it goes. Fuel in Congo was slightly cheaper. I was told. I've not been there, but they would say that fuel in Congo and Rwanda is cheaper, but it goes through Uganda, and I would imagine the distance from Kampala to Kigali. In Kampala to Congo, then you find it cheaper the other side. What magic do they play to make it that cheaper as compared to ours? Those are the questions that you find with people in the public. So somehow there are certain things that are not adding up very properly in as far as the fuel prices in Uganda are concerned.
Yes, the last time I was in Kigali, there was no significant difference between our fuel here and theirs. Of course, it was cheaper, but it was above $1, and they're also crying that these that the pump prices are going up. So
yes, but ordinarily, if we are all sourcing fuel from Mombasa, for example, from the port Mombasa, and me, I am selling it in Kampala, then the other person drives 450 kilometers away or 600 to Kigali, and it is either the same price in Kigali with the cost of transport from Kampala to Kigali, then somehow here it remains high in the real sense. That is the argument of not myself, but that's what you even hear in the public. So it would have been slightly cheaper here than Kigali or Congo, because all of us source from the same place, and the other people trek a longer distance as compared to what we do. So that is the challenge. I also wanted, I don't know, moderator, if we have time, I wanted to raise something on per capita income.
Please.
Per capita income in Uganda. 2021, it stood at $858 per capita income. That is every Ugandan. 2021. When what I checked was
it is 1,046, sir.
1,000 per capita income.
Yes,
beautiful for the correction. It even takes it higher. 1,000 gives you how much money in Uganda?
It's around 3.7 million.
1,000?
It's around
1,000 what?
It's 1,046, 1,045, 1,046. 1045.
Let us go real. 1045 times 3,880.
You have put your exchange rate to that. Okay.
Around that.
Okay.
It gives you over 4 million shillings for each person. So each person is expected to be in Uganda
on average.
At the population levels that we have, every person is supposed to be having or to be earning 4 million and above. But in the real sense, the biggest part, over 52% of the Ugandans are youth. Among the youth, the percentage of unemployment among the youth, 2018 it clocked 87%. Unemployed youth, people who even finish school and they can't find jobs. So when you compare these figures, the people among the whole 45 million, 52% and above are not working. You get? So you are talking about less than about 45% that should share this money. But even those that are not youth, that are not employed, I would say big number. They're in 30% and above. Unemployment, ordinarily. So when you look at how many people hold the money, how many Ugandans hold the 4 million annually, it may not even go to 10% of the Ugandans. But the per capita gives us more than 4 million shillings per person, including a baby. But in the real sense, about 10% or less are the ones holding this money. You will find that one individual person has money that could be divided among 1 million people.
I think there is something here which we need to reflect on. Uganda has a young population.
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps some of these young people are not even yet in the employment bracket.
Definitely they are not.
Many are not. Yes, men are not. So what this means is that the household size is around 6.7. The last time I checked, it was around 6.7 on average. So if you see this per capita number the way it is, you know that we have higher levels of dependency. Okay, so you have higher levels of dependence, meaning that a given family head might be taking care of even more than 10 family members. You know, our places, for example, in Eastern Uganda, the household family sizes are really big. So that is not to say that, of course, that things are very good at that level. What we need to do is to increase more opportunities through industrialization, through increased production, such that we use these young people to produce produce more in terms of output of the entire economy. So we are still challenged in terms of the opportunities available, but we need to grow our economy better and also work on reducing the household sizes, which is a big problem.
All right, Uganda at 60, stride is taken by Uganda to attain economic independence. Mauku,
yes, please.
Before we go far into the challenges and blaming who and who, do we have the economic gains that we have realized as a country that every Ugandan needs to embrace? Last week we had a political program on the political gains that we have reached as a country. And among them we had security, we had democracy. But what are those key economic gains that we have realized as a country that we need to uphold?
From the onset, I made mention of the very good and important policies that have driven this country in as far as economic development is concerned. And one of them, the baseline, is political stability. You cannot think about economy where there is political instability.
So
that has been the benchmark. I mean, the underlying factor is political stability that has enhanced or given the attributes to economic development. We have industrialization. I only highlighted a few pitfalls within industrialization and also privatization, but they still stand out to be very important and key driving factors of the economy. We only want to continuously request and advise and guide that let us do it the best way, in the best interest of the Ugandans, all of us, not only one side.
Talking about political stability and security, someone said that me being secure outside, but when I'm sleeping hungry, I'm not secure at all because I don't have money in my pocket. That is insecurity itself.
You see, this is what I've been saying. This political stability and the programs economically that are prevailing should speak to the ordinary person. Does the ordinary person benefit from this policy? For example, if we have privatization, which are private, where many of the government parastatals were privatized, and it gave employment to the people. Yes, is this employment decent? Is the question. As long as the policies practical allow, they may allow on paper, but when in practice, it's not being achieved.
Can government give money to the people, or when the state has given you peace, then you need to strive the best to earn?
You see, government has done all these things, many things, and maybe I don't know whether there is sometimes this brother of mine, doctor, does not do proper research. We have programs. We have had programs here. Bonabagagawale, Emioga, NADS. All these things have come with the good intent of now the parish development model, and they are saying it is so good. But again, recently, which district was it? Where? There is one where they were just beginning, and all the money again went into the authorities. The very people who are supposed to administer the money to the ordinary persons gave the money to themselves. So either it is the level of corruption that is exceedingly high, even with very good intent by government to do some things, they are always failed by individuals that at implementation level.
Mr. Mauku,
Nioga, Bonabagagawale, NADS, and many others. They came with good intent and youth livelihood, but at implementation, things fail. So we may not necessarily blame government per se, but we shall blame the people that implement. And the issue again is what happens, because we just fail. We get into another budget. We say, let us change from Mioga to parish development. But we have left the very people who mismanaged Mioga untouched.
And we are recruiting them in this very new one.
You know, so it may not even make sense. The whole issue would be to precisely deal with the people who mismanage government good intended programs. But you don't see even people being put to question. But they just change the program to another.
Okay.
By the way, just for information,
in seconds, our time is fast spent. We are now in the rush hour. Patrick, in seconds.
Yes, I was saying that Emioga is still ongoing. Parish development model has not replaced Emioga. Emioga is there, and parish development model is also there. Yes, please. So yes, of course, you're right. We have issues in implementation. That is our Achilles heel. So we need to perform better in terms of implementing these things, supervising them, following them up, and most importantly, bringing people to account for their actions. Those who have not done what they were supposed to do.
All right. UBC live and clear on 98 FM. We're also live on Butebo. We're also live on West Nile FM and Magic 100 FM. We are streaming live on YouTube. You enter UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of this conversation. I'm taking a very short break and I pray that you don't go away. I will pick your calls later on 776-511-426 and you tell us where you want Uganda to go in as far as economic development is concerned, and what do you think we have achieved as a country in as far as economic independence is concerned. UBC Ground Zero is coming back shortly.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The 4 economic sectors where their jobs and wealth are: commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of P1, Senior 1, and Senior 5.
Culture and religion. And other areas of human interest. Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio. Don't miss.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on UBC Red, UBC Butebo, UBC West Nile, and Magic 100 FM. We are streaming live on YouTube, UBC Ground Zero, and 776-511-426 is the number you can call and be part of this conversation. And Baile Amon Utega is my name. Our topic today: Uganda at 60, strides taken by Uganda to attain economic independence. In the studios of UBC, I have Dr. Patrick Olowo, is the manager macroeconomic planning from National Planning Authority, and Mauk R. Moses is the general secretary and CEO from Hotels, Tourism, Supermarkets Union. Gentlemen, allow me to shift my gear to the middle income status. Dr. Patrick, in the National Planning Authority, one of the immediate planning goals that you have is to attain Uganda's, to help Uganda attain middle income status with the annual per capita income of $1,036 or higher, which was predicted to be realized by 2020. Now 2 years are down the road, we have not achieved that. There has been a debate going on that we are in the middle income status. Others are saying we are not yet there. And we seem to have failed to realize this target, which you are brought to spearhead. We see government shifting polls every other day. It was 2020, it was 2017, first 2020, now we are in 2025, 2030, we have Vision 2040, until when government is going to keep shifting polls in as far as realizing the middle income status is concerned. And what made you fail this mandate as a planning authority? Dr. Patrick?
We have not failed on that mandate.
You have only delayed?
No, we have not. We have not failed. There have been some challenges here and there. So the figures which you're quoting, actually, that is the NDP2 the NDP2 which we already implemented, which is being evaluated how it has performed. We are currently undertaking that evaluation. So the target was to propel Uganda into middle income status. Of course, to be very frank with you, with all the international standards that are used to measure middle income, we have not attained it, but we are moving towards attaining it. As the president said, that we have knocked on the door. We are in the doorway of attaining that middle income status. Now that our GDP per capita is 1,046, should we sustain this and above, perhaps World Bank will be able to declare, because we do not declare, it is the World Bank that does that declaration. But without getting into the jargons of that World Bank is using gross national income per capita for it to determine whether the country has attained middle income status, and we are using GDP per capita. So there are other indicators that are also used. The indicators to do with the human asset index that has something to do with how the country's exports are doing, the level of vulnerability. There is also the economic vulnerable index that tries to probe agricultural production, how does the country respond to droughts, to disasters. Certain indices are done. So it is a computation that involves both the income approach and the other achievements in terms of socio-economic aspects. The socio-economic aspects in terms of the maternal mortality rates, the infant mortality rates, and all that. So you must perform well on those along those lines in order for you to move into that middle income status. Before COVID came, actually, we were on the road to that to attaining some of these targets. If you know that 2 years before COVID, we had grown by over 6%, 6.4,
Okay.
6.2%. So the year 2019-20, this was reduced by more than a half. We grew by 3%, yet the previous year we had grown by 6%. However, we are on the road to recovery, and we need to grow our national output, the GDP, such that we attain those indicators
Okay.
that we want to attain. So the
Interesting.
other bit is those in the social sectors must perform. Those in the health sector, education, they must perform to the level that they're supposed to perform, to make sure that we have commendable socioeconomic outcomes, meaning that we reduce our maternal mortality rates, we reduce our infant mortality rates, we don't have undernourished kids, we are able to handle those things. So I'm pretty sure that in this planning cycle, we are going to make that middle income status.
Okay. Mauku,
Yes.
do you see some hopes of us realizing the middle income status by 2025 as the next shifting pole is concerned?
In my own thinking, I'm not directly involved in in manufacturing these figures. Middle income status is a preferred status for the country, and it would be a very good thing if Uganda achieves it.
Do you
In
see-
reality,
Do you see us achieving it?
I
in
do
the-
not in any form see Uganda achieve the middle income status by the year 2025. Not at all. It won't happen here. Unless maybe God shifts his home and comes to sit in Uganda for the balance of the time. But under the current circumstances, I don't see this happen. I also have some challenge is when you look at the dynamics, even when we achieved it, fine. In whose interest is middle income status? Is it merely government or Uganda as a whole? Because if we have a middle income status achieved or pronounced by the authorities that be, but the dynamics are one individual carries money for 1 million people, that middle income status is not very palatable for the rest of Ugandans. I would wish, I do not advise government. I don't have the capacity, but where I have an opportunity to speak, I will speak. If they hear, they can take my word. Middle income status, if it is to be achieved, and in a situation where we have one Ugandan owning property, assets, and cash, that would be divided by 1 million people. Then the government must be thinking of policies, working policies that can try to shift some monies to other Ugandans as well. And this can best be seen through practical things that are already existing in the structures that government has put in place. For example, in the industries, if you pronounce a minimum wage, you uplift a number of Ugandans' income automatically. And yet, this so-called minimum wage, there is an advisory board that government put in place that discusses with all stakeholders, including government itself, and still it is government to do it. But you seek the advice, your opinions of the other stakeholders. The employers will be involved. And we even had meetings, and we formed a committee, a special committee, bipartite committee. We as NOTU agreed with Federation of Uganda Employers on figures, and when we gave the ministry, they said, keep quiet a little bit. Setting sectoral minimum wage. You are not going to pronounce a minimum wage for everybody. Sectors differ. The professions differ. So we agreed, if we are to operate a minimum wages law, it must be sectoral, because different sectors require different capacities and qualifications. We cannot have the same minimum wage for domestic workers at home, and then the people who are professionals, like people who are doing in service industry, it should be different. In agriculture, it should be different, because the skills required to produce in the different sectors are also different and at different levels. So for me, I would wish to advise, one, that among the things that you are doing as government, and especially the planners of our government, for us all, focus, with emphasis, focus on trying to reduce the income gap between the rich and the poor. Try as much as possible to reduce that gap so that we spread the money. Uganda has money. It's almost getting to being self-sustainable, because our budgets as of now, when you compare with what used to happen, you will advise us, we can fund our we can fund most of our things.
Sure.
We now do the roads by ourselves. We are also proud when the president comes and says, I have done this road without external support.
Actually, they said that the financing of this Vision 2040 will be highly and mainly financed by government of Uganda.
That is very proud. We are proud. It makes us proud, yes. The
But does
problem
Uganda as a
has been,
nation state have the capacity to develop and transform her economy without the external support?
partially it can, but the problem has been corruption. But if you put all of the monies to good use here, we can do a tremendous job.
Mr. Moderator, financing of development is everybody's role. So it is not true that Vision 2040 or the NDPs fully government of Uganda financed. So they have an element of the private sector. Government cannot do without the private sector. The private sector has the resources. Government has some resources. Government's resources could be a little bit catalytic.
But that's
to
Uganda.
yes.
Yeah,
Within Uganda there are those resources from the private and the public. My brother here on this minimum wage, I think the key issue that we should be looking out for is maybe the questions as we agitated for minimum wage. The things that we should ask ourselves: can a minimum wage hold when you have 50% of your economy informal? Shouldn't the strategic question be that why don't we achieve a 75-80% formalization of the economy first before we ask for something that is implementable? Because like I submitted from the beginning, it might just remain on paper if you propose a certain minimum wage when you have high rates of informality, when you have an extra supply of because the people who are actually who are most affected by the lack of the minimum wage are those casual laborers or those semi-skilled individuals. You will correct me if I'm wrong. They are the people who have suffered in this country because of lack of that wage. But it is all to do with the way the economy is. The way the economy is operating.
A Ugandan would ask themselves, why has it failed here yet it is effectively working in Kenya, just our neighbor here?
In other countries. So are we doing the worst in the region that for us we can't afford to pronounce one?
We need to.
But even Rwanda can, Sudan can, other countries can. But for us, even the issue of formalizing the informality.
Yes, we need to find out the level of formalization in those countries to know how the implementation of a minimum wage operates.
But it was here even during the Obote regime and Amini's regime. We had a minimum wage. Were those governments doing better than the movement government? They weren't.
Okay.
But we had a minimum wage during Obote. Here, it was only scrapped. But it was there. It's not about comparing whether we have achieved this percentage here or not. It is a requirement.
All right.
That you set a minimum wage. It is even a good attribute for you to move people from informality to formal. Because they will know that when you go to formality, this is what you're expecting. But now, people are walking away from formal to informal. I'm telling you, as we are struggling to encourage people to formalize the informality, there are people opting for informality.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they find that in the informal, there are even escape routes. In the informal setting, there are people, by the way, in the informal sector who earn higher
informality is not
than public servants.
Informality is not synonymous with poverty or lower.
Yeah.
No. There are opportunities there. Only that these people have chosen to go there because they don't want some government policies to
There are so many escape routes.
There are advantages of operating in a formal, or in an informal setting. So until we make it difficult, or we have more incentives on the formal side, until people see the benefits, the other side people will remain informal.
You see, you are our planners.
You
see ahead of us. So you would be advising us on things that
so that is where we
try to
so
bridge the gap.
And which
in order for us
which
to get that
direction we
minimum
should
wage,
take as a country?
I beg your pardon?
They should be advising us on which direction we should take as a country.
the direction
Gentlemen,
which you are taking is to increase formalization.
allow
And
me,
increasing industrialization. That is when we will talk of this minimum.
allow me,
minimum wage.
gentlemen, change my direction also to face the trade, Ugandan trade in the region, Africa and beyond. I have a friend who happens to be coming from Chenjojo. The other day left Kampala, and when I asked him, he said, in Rutoro I quote, in Kampala, he said, in Kampala, no korabitano no riarsanju, that you earn 500 and spend 700. So he had failed and decided to go back to the village. In relation to the exports in Uganda, we are earning less from the imports, from the exports, but we are exporting, we are importing more and exporting less. Are we yet to perish or to prosper? Let me start with you, Dr. Patrick. Where is this going to end? We have 60 years after independence. We are working to attain the economic independence, but we are spending more than what we are earning.
So, to relate with your friend from Kenjojo, who talks of earning 500 and eating 700, it is the same thing I think that the country is facing. When you relate the exports and imports, the value, what is the value of our exports? So that is why we have been advising, or as a government has been talking of increasing manufacturing value added. What value addition are we adding? So that is where that is the thing. The sophistication of our exports has to first increase in order for us to reverse the negative trade balance that we are facing. So the idea of promoting manufacturing, agro-processing, light and heavy industries, setting up the iron and steel industry in here, or setting up the life industries, is to make sure that we improve, or that we add value locally before we export. It is it is not good for us to continue exporting coffee beans when we can do something on this coffee and attract more resources. Government has banned the exportation of raw minerals, raw ores, because you are exporting jobs. So can we have investors, or the idea is to have investors in here that can add value on those minerals that God blessed us with, such that they can attract more resources, so that they can attract more dollars. Until we add value, that is when we can reverse this idea of importing more than what having a lower export value than the import bill. So it is on value addition.
Mauku,
Yes.
what do you advise as a Ugandan household to do in order to reduce on the expenditure but also increase on earnings? We had the hopes in agriculture, but you see agriculture is contributing now 23% of our GDP. That means it is no longer a rescue, so we need to concentrate on what else. The other day I had the minister says that labor export is contributing $700 as against to coffee products, coffee products that are giving us $500.
But the feedback from the labor export is just a mayhem.
What do
We
we
are
need
losing
to do?
lives. We are losing younger people, both in the labor market in Uganda and also the individuals that are crossing over. Many of them come back maimed, insane, totally disabled. So much as we get money, there is need for us to regulate and monitor what happens to our younger people who cross to the Middle East to offer labor. It's not rosy at all, because families have lost people. People come back totally maimed, beaten. You have all heard what is happening. So
Others dead. Let's look at the
I want to, now this brings me back home. The question that you have raised. For me, I'm also hailing from Eastern. I come from Bugwere Kingdom. And what is said by the president, kukolera kida chonka. It is my language. And you are asking about exactly the same thing. You know, there is one thing that I wanted to make a comment about. There is a program which I've read about where government is saying they want to support farmers. They want to support farmers who have 50 acres and more. 50 acres of land. But Mr. President is very well aware that among the regions that he governs, there is Bugwere Kingdom, and even in Teso and Tororo, Eastern mainly, you will not have any one individual owning land beyond 20 acres. It is very rare. If you have them, in a region they may be two. So this program that is coming to support farmers who have 50 is very discriminative.
That is supporting large.
Yes, large. Yes, but if it is going to go in one area at the expense of the other areas because they don't have that resource, it wouldn't be. They would have segregated it into maybe two. But when it focuses on to the people who are already well off, then it is going to leave certain regions totally crippled, where they are supporting those who have that type of land. I would advise that they review, Doctor, in your planning, try to review and consider all regions, because there is something that TESO can produce best, even when it is not on 50 acres, and it can add to the exports Uganda is going to make, but from TESO. So it would be important that we don't only focus on people who are God-given, but we focus on regions. What can be produced in this region? Okay. And who in this region is doing something? So we don't go by the size of land, but we go by the products people are producing, but not necessarily the size of land. That is discriminative in my own opinion. Because in Ebugwere, you will never have such a person who has 50 acres of land. He's not there. But we also have certain things that we can do better. 2 is in line with that. I wanted to advise that government, in responding to the problems of this economy, to focus a little more on activities, income generating activities, specifically that can support the youth, the youthful people. Much as we are a private-led economy, it is not it's not bad for government to say, let us construct factories using raw materials from a given specific area. If you say Kibuk is where he launched the parish development model, if governments agreed that for every constituency, let us have a factory, for every constituency, a government factory or plant, or under PPP, government partners with an investor or investors, but for every constituency in Uganda, to have a factory that can employ at least 500 people. Okay. But from only that place, because we have a lot of crime rate increasing, all younger people end up in betting, and while they are doing the betting, they are smoking opium, they are doing all forms of bad things to get money to themselves because they are idle.
Let me open my line.
So if we have a factory for every constituency.
Allow me open my line 776-511-426 for the few minutes that we have, and I have 1 or 2 callers because my phone was being worked on, and now I think it is well. UBC. Radio. When you call, please distance yourself from the radio because it creates an echo and it affects our ears this side. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call and share your opinions. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are discussing Uganda's 60 strides taken by Uganda to attain economic independence. UBC. I've lost the caller. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call and share your opinion on what you think needs to be done to improve or develop our economic status as the country, and what have we gained as the country Uganda. 776-511-426. My time is fast spent. I think I have issues still with my line, and I hope next time we shall work on that. Allow me give you some minutes. Let me pick on this one. UBC. My line. UBC.
UBC Uganda.
Yes, you're live and clear.
You're speaking to Sanders from Arua.
Yes, please.
You people, I like your discussion.
Thank you so much, sir.
So, for the issue of the employment, we as youth were really suffering. Now, things like you say betting and opium smoking, these people, they're just doing this thing because of stress, because there is no work in this count of hours. You even spend more than 6 years or 7 years like for 20 years in school, but you end up doing betting work. Now I don't know how this government can change our country.
Okay.
But I just want to give thanks for the program.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Oh, my line. Hello? My line. UBC? UBC?
Yes, UBC, how are you today?
Most fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. Me, I just want to talk about this issue. Government brings in good issues, subjects.
Sorry?
But at the end of it, they fail because of too much corruption. Now, I embraced this project of EBM. It really came very well, and we embraced it very well, and we thought it would be the best project that will remove people from poverty. But again, we are hearing they have embezzled the money. Money is not there. Since we see all the programs, to now nothing is done. Really, what are those of advisors who are talking of being advising the government? How are they advising the government? Because if this program now today fails, meaning now there is nothing else that they will bring to the community, and they will accept their programs.
Okay.
Now to advise them, let them try that really see that there is something done on the ground on this program. Because it is one of the best programs that were brought and people embraced.
Okay,
so advise them, try to talk to them, and then see how to solve that problem. Otherwise, things are not good for the government.
All right.
I remain Masaba Robert Langusha in Vosio village, and then Vosio parish of Kisa sub-county.
Thank you so much, and we're glad that you are part of UBC Ground Zero. My phone had some issues, but at least I've had some 2 or 3 callers, and I believe that next time we're going to have more time to discuss issues that concern our country. The last caller, UBC.
Yes, hello.
You're live and clear on UBC. You have 2 seconds, sir.
Yeah, 2 seconds. This is Henry Vaguma. I think we are moving on. We should stop lamenting and move forward. For me, I think we are doing well. A few things need to be sorted out, but otherwise, we are on the right course. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, and I thank you for that appreciation, and it is an encouragement to all of us. Oh, I see so many people calling, but my time is fast spent. I really apologize for this, but I promise that we shall have more time to discuss these issues in the next episode of Ground Zero next Saturday. Allow me give you only seconds, gentlemen in the studios of UBC, to give your way forward, and we end our discussion. Starting with Mauku.
Thank you, moderator. As we conclude this program, I want to salute all Ugandans and appreciate government for all that they have tirelessly done to improve our economy. I only want to conclude by saying one thing. Government development programs, as of now, should, among others, focus on the youth, practical things that could be done in different constituencies, like establishing a factory that could have or use local content in a given constituency, but at least it employs, because the crime rate is increasing in every village.
All right.
And if not done, then I don't know where we shall be heading. But I pray that all is well, and I salute all Ugandans.
All right.
I wish you the very best.
I love the fact that you ended with the statement that you pray, and indeed it is God that we need, as our motto says, for good in my country. Dr. Patrick, you have only seconds.
Yes, thank you, moderator. Thank you, UBC, for inviting us. You should invite us regularly to engage. And I also thank Ugandans who have called in with the issues that they are raising. I advise where to possible to embrace these government programs to be very keen, because development is everyone's. Nobody has a monopoly on how to develop. We all have to play our fair role in terms of pushing this country forward. Thank you.
That is UBC Ground Same station, same program, different topic. For God and my country, I'm Peter Amonotega. Allow me to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics,